Welcome to the Positive Persistence Podcast, where ordinary people inspire your extraordinary success. Hey, what's up, family? Have you ever felt completely let down by the very system that was supposed to protect you and the people you love most? Well, our guest today knows that feeling in a way most of us can't imagine. Today, we're joined by Josh Resnikoff, founder of Sunstone Health and a passionate advocate for families on the rare disease and complex care journey. Josh Resnikoff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Josh, before we dive in, I was hoping that you could kind of unpack what the rare disease and complex care journey is so our listeners and viewers can understand that a little bit more.
We call this whole class of diseases rare diseases, right? It's the worst name that's ever been levied on a patient group in the history of medicine. The only reason that they're called rare is because 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago, we didn't have the methods to go in and actually figure out what's wrong with these people because it was happening at a genetic level, at the DNA level. In the same way that like we talk about cancer, right? But cancer is really thousands of different types of diseases related to cellular division, right? We call them mitosis. Rare disease is actually just genetic diseases that we haven't been able to identify or approach because we haven't been able to see those patients pretty accurately. So if you look up stats on rare diseases, you'll see these like crazy numbers. Like there are 6,000 to 10,000 types of rare disease, right? But the reality is if you sort of fold everybody down into the commonality, that genetic basis for things, you're talking about a patient population that 1 out of every 10 human beings on the planet has a genetic condition for their disease. All right. Half of those people are kids. For families that are burdened by the challenges of dealing with a genetic condition, today's healthcare system isn't really set up to deal with that very efficiently. That's the issue. It's not that we don't have great doctors or that we don't have good specialty. We've never, frankly, been in a better time scientifically to go off and figure out what's going on with these kids and to figure out solutions for them. It takes you 6 months to get to dermatology. It takes you another 9 months to get to rheumatology. You get bounced through the system because everybody sort of has their own little ivory tower of specialty. And so these patients, they end up from the first time you have like a symptom that doesn't quite fit in the mold to the time that you get to a treatment plan, on average, globally, and we're better at it here in the States than most people, but on average, it takes 7 years. And that's 7 years of going to the doctor. It's 7 years of that disease getting worse, spending money, like the stress. It is an unfortunate great failing of what is otherwise like a pretty amazing healthcare system that we have here in America. But that's the rare disease, genetic disease, diagnostic odyssey. That's what we call it.
So if you guys have been listening to what Josh is talking about, you're wondering, how does he know so much about this? Well, we're definitely going to get into the gap that his company now fills to help with this situation. But before we do that, let's unpack a little bit of your journey and why you got to this point to where you are now. In our conversation that we had before, you said that you were a simple scientist before all of this. And for us laymen, I don't think biomedical engineers will be considered simple scientists. But
I appreciate that.
Can you walk us through the exact moment when you stopped seeing yourself primarily as a simple scientist, biomedical engineer, and started seeing yourself as what you call a warrior parent who had to build something new for your son and for other families?
I think in all fairness, I still really identify as a simple scientist, right? Like to me, it is still a hypothesis and experimental driven process that's going to get us to the end in a solution, right? Like that's science. Like this is sort of the thing that they don't teach you in science school, no matter what discipline you go into. But when you want to become a scientist, you get really good at getting comfortable with failing over and over and over again as your way to kind of like edge in closer to what is hopefully the truth, right? Or hopefully a little bit closer to the truth. Because of how complicated this thing is, how big the problem is, like I still think about my approach as very much rooted in the scientific method. The root of your question, there are moments, right? And we talked a little bit about this. There was a moment when our doctor, or our like third pediatrician at that point, told us that there was nothing that they could do, nothing that healthcare could do for my kid. That was definitely like a chrysalis moment,
And Josh, would you mind sharing with us what brought you to that point?
Yeah, of course.
Would you feel comfortable sharing with everybody what was going on with your son?
I have 3 boys. My second one is where my rare disease story takes off. So his name is Shiloh. He's 10 now. He was born very easy, very normal. Like nothing about the birth should have given anybody any pause. He was born on call, which means he was actually born in the placenta, and it's like a very rare thing to happen, but that is not in and of itself like a trigger for anything downstream. It's just a physical thing. Anyway, so fast forward, happy guy, growing well, eating all the food, like not missing milestones. And when he was about 18 months old, he had his first fever. So he jumped to 105 degrees. And if you're a parent, especially for a peanut, that kid gets that hot, like you're headed to the ER. There's no real two ways about it. The crazier part was just how fast it happened. It's not like he was getting sicker and then we were at 101 and 102 and then we were at 105. He went from like 98.6 to 105 in like a few minutes. That triggers a whole bunch of other concern at the hospital level. So you head to the ER, you get put on an IV, all these things happen. Can't figure it out because kids are weird. Every kid is different. That's what you hear, right?
Yeah.
They put us on this insane anti-inflammatory. It's Advil and Tylenol, like pumping them full of more Advil and Tylenol that I would feel comfortable with taking as an adult, but that's what the doctors tell me to do. We go home, it lasts for a few days, comes down, and you're like, whew, okay, bullet dodged. 4 weeks later, it happens again. Back to the ER. Same process. 4 weeks later, it happens again. And it just became this rhythm to our life where you could kind of see it was going to happen the day before. He'd go like real glassy-eyed the day before. His bags under his eyes would get really dark. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing we could do. Like there is no preventative care. There are like some lifestyle things you can help do to sort of minimize the duration or the intensity. But there's no real treatment. There's no real option. So we ended up on the rare disease diagnostic odyssey. I'm living in Boston. I'm at some of the best hospitals. And everyone's like, I don't know. Maybe he's got strep. Maybe he's got a viral infection, right? Let's do some more blood work. Let's do some more labs. Let's put him on this thing. I got frustrated with my first pediatrician. So we're at another pediatrician. I got frustrated with her. So we're at another pediatrician. And this is it. And I was fortunate enough with my job in biotech that everyone knew what was going on. I was vocal with my bosses. I had a lot of love for my bosses. When I had to miss 3 or 4 days of work or work from home really back then, 2016, 2017, 2018, right? So before COVID, before working from home was like a standard, but everybody was really flexible. I got a lot of support. I was really fortunate in that space. And it finally took about 3 years and we got to this place where we had a pediatrician who said, oh my God, I think I read about one of these things in med school, right? I think he has one of these periodic fevers. We go and look it up and, he's like 9 out of 10 symptoms. This is what he's got. Awesome. What do we do? And that's when she says, oh, there's nothing you can do. Maybe if there's 500 kids in the States who have this thing, there's no known treatment. As I shared with you before, and people have sort of heard me say in other places, like the big kick in the teeth for me from this doctor was she looks me dead in the eye and she goes, it's not terminal, so don't worry about it. And I'm like, lady, I'm worried about this thing all the time. Like I can't sleep at night because I worry about this. Like not just while it's happening, but the 3.5 weeks a month where I'm wondering if it's going to happen, let alone like all of the deeper parts that I know we're going to talk about, but just like, what did I mess up? Did I party a little too hard as a teenager? Like, what did I do that like did this to my kid?
Yeah.
That is my crucible moment of coming from really being a scientist, trying to make technology that would help other patients, to being a caregiver and just bumping into the deficiencies in the healthcare system. Yeah. And that was the first frustration moment, but that wasn't even the like, okay, we're going to go do something about that. Because that was just the start of my journey of like, all right, now we need to manage this. Now we're gone.
I can't imagine. Well, I can because I've been in a similar scenario. And I'm sure a lot of people have been a similar situation on their health journey where they get that answer that isn't an answer from the medical professional, right? The person that's supposed to give you, the person that you are counting on to figure this thing out, and they give you this non-answer answer that leaves you like, what am I supposed to do with that? What actually happened, like in your head, in your heart, in the hours and the days after that appointment? Like, how did you, I guess, compose yourself and like channel that, I imagine, anger and potentially fear into action?
It was not a smooth process. Like, let me be honest with you about that. It's a lot like putting my kids to bed. There's 2 of them at this point, right? So, one is 3 or 4, one is now 5 or 6. They're 2 years apart. For the years that we were still going to the hospital, you get to like put all your eggs in the basket of hope. You're like, we're gonna figure this out. Like, we're gonna find that specialist who's gonna help me figure it out. Like, someone is gonna be like Dr. House and show up from behind the curtain and be like, aha, like here's your shot. You're good to go. Don't ever worry about it again. So you're like, that's going to happen. I know that's going to happen. And then it doesn't happen. You're like, well, holy shit, like, what do I do now? And first there's, I think, just a deep, I've never put it this way before, but I felt betrayed. I felt straight up betrayed. Not just because the healthcare system, like you're saying, is like, all of your trust is in this person in front of you. You got a stethoscope on, like, I'm going to listen to you. That's the deal we make with doctors since we're babies, right? Like, it hurts, my leg's bleeding, whatever the thing is, I go to the doctor, they make it better, right? They're better than mom and dad. You know what I mean? So that was really hard. And then to be in the field, even tangentially, but to be associated with it and to feel like the work that I did didn't matter. Like we were so good at helping all these other esoteric edge cases. Like we could build shoes that help old people not fall over. We could build assays in the lab that could test for diseases. And then my kid is left up the creek. Like, are you kidding me? So that was definitely, like I said, like that was the first time I think I felt angry, because until then it had been hopeful. Then there's like the guilt, right? And I'm sure it's like the 7 stages of dealing with any sort of trauma, but like, there's the guilt, there's like the putting my kids to bed and like crying myself to sleep, walking around him like with your gloves on, like trying to make sure he doesn't fall over, because like God forbid that triggers another event, but you also want him to be a normal kid who could just slide down the slide, like it's super complicated. And I was also going through a divorce at the time from his mom. It's just like everything feels like it's like falling apart, right? And I had to get through that period, and that really took 2.5 years before I could even like approach it in a constructive way and be like, okay, like I'm going to move out of the like emergency feeling, the crisis feeling all the time. And by that time I'd started to like meet some other people who are on their own rare disease odyssey. And that community really helped back end my feeling of like, oh, it's not just me. And I met some people who have rare diseases who are also like in the Harvard MIT system, right? Who are in this Boston system, who are also kind of pissed off about all this stuff. And that with like the community aspect, not being alone, I think is really where, for me, that was the inflection point of like, oh, we got a gang. Like there's enough of us that we can go push on the system. Like I can't do that by myself, but like, look at my crew. There's a lot of us. That is really where it comes from. That's gotta be, I mean, like I am kind of doing this in real time with you. I'm sorry, it's maybe a little off the cuff, but like,
that's perfect. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's good. It's just really interesting. Like my first co-founder, partner, Dr. Lena Williamson. She has Ehlers-Danlos. I met her because I worked with her husband running commercial for the biotech that came out of the work that we had done at Harvard Med. He was my boss and he knew all about my son. And he was the guy who was like, hey, dude, take 3-4 days every month and like, go do your thing. Like we got you. He's like, hey, you need to talk to my wife. She also deals with this stuff. She also deals with the challenges of the healthcare system. Come over for a glass of wine. Okay, well, let's go do that. They're family now. And Lena couldn't get the healthcare that she needed here in the States so badly. She moved her entire family to Barcelona just so she could go get the functional medicine. That is a crazy thing. You shouldn't have to move to a different continent to go get the healthcare that like we're promised since birth as an American. So like, I love her, I love them. Like we see them once a year, like we'll go there, they come here. One of the most inspiring people I know, but that is a level of extreme that like, thankfully their family could go off and achieve, but does not exist for 99% of people. We really wanted to tackle this together. And she was the one who really like, if the seed had been planted in my brain, she like poured all the water and fertilizer onto it.
She increased your factor of influence for sure. You're big on being a fierce self-advocate, right? Because obviously that's what got you to where you are now, and through that situation you were dealing with your son now, and refusing to take that there's nothing we can do as the final word. For someone who's listening, who's as terrified of being that parent or that patient, what are some practical ways to advocate fiercely without, I guess, burning bridges with the people that are supposed to help you?
Well, you kind of took the wind out of my answer because
so the answer is you got to burn the bridges.
Sometimes you got to burn the bridge. Like, look, There are a lot of doctors out there who want to do the right thing. There are a lot of doctors out there who don't want to be told what to do, especially by some parent who's a little hysterical, who's got a Google paper in their hand saying, well, what about this thing, right? Like, I didn't go to med school for 8 years, so you can come at me with some article you found on Google, or let alone Claude now, you know? You just can't take no for an answer. And I don't want to like Joe Rogan it, but like do your own research. But like you kind of got to do your own research. The reality is you're a little outside the bell curve, a little and a lot outside the bell curve. Like these are things that just are not spent a lot of time on general medicine education. It's not the doctor's fault in front of you. It's not your PCP's fault. Like you're just talking about, they're taught how to take care of the bell curve. They're taught how to take care of the people in the middle. You know, that's why specialty exists. Like, that's why you're hoping for Dr. House, because like somebody's got a photographic memory and they read that one article one time. But, you know, you look at the research now, like any specialty, I think they estimate you need like 140 labor hours a week per person just to stay on top of the amount of research that's being generated. Like no one knows, no doc who's got 11 minutes a day, 11 minutes per patient to see 30 patients a day, has the time to also go off and do hundreds of hours of research on a monthly basis to stay on top of every edge case that they're going to find. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I've been in the room with doctors who are in our like chain of care custody, right? People we've been referred to. Everybody has a situation. Okay, well, we got to go see GI. So you go on the GI. You've got my kid's chart open in front of you. What brings you in today? Don't you fucking know? I'm sorry.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry for swearing.
That's the reality of it.
Like, how many times have you gone to the doctor? Everybody has a story, which is like ridiculous. Okay, you go to the triage nurse, right? You bump into her. Hey, what brings you in today? Let's take your blood pressure. Let's take your heart rate. Cool. Oh, great. Thank you so much for seeing me. I got this pain in my head. All right, we're going to get you seen. Let's send you in the back. You go in the back. Nurse practitioner comes in. Hey, what brings you in today? And you're like, I just told that lady out front, but I want to make sure you know too. She leaves. 2 minutes later, doctor comes in today and she's like, hey, what brings you in today? And you're like, oh my God, like, do you guys not talk to each other? And then you magnify that out by going to specialty or different buildings or months of waiting in between. And again, for edge cases, like I have had to explain to my specialists what my kid has. And they're like, wow, I've never heard of that before. Well, great. What am I doing here? Politely burn that bridge if you have to. You cannot take no for an answer. Even if you are what we call an N of one patient, there are people out there who specialize in N of one patients, right? You got to find them, or better yet, like me, make that connection for you so you don't have to wait around for it. But there are people out there who can help you. You just have to get fierce about it. I wish there was an easier way, but that's it.
You know, and that brings me to the mindset that you have to have, right? And as one of optimism. And you've described yourself as a pathological optimist. For everybody that's listening or watching this episode, you know, taking what you're saying and blowing it out to any and all instances where you are set back from some sort of obstacle or something that is in your way, something that life has smacked you down out of the blue, and you're dealing with this and learning, taking what you're saying and kind of applying it to any situation. An instance or an example when, and maybe this is something that you've dealt with, like when an investor says no, or the doctor shrugs and says, well, I've never heard of that before, right? Or the data isn't promising, or the research that you're doing isn't giving the answers you want. What does that optimism look like in practice on the quote unquote rough days, right? Like, can you break down the process from I'm crushed and I feel like I want to give up because all of this is too much, to I'm back in the fight and I'm not giving up no matter what?
I had a very tough growing up, some by personal design, some by exterior environment. I had to learn at an early age how to pick myself up and just and be self-contained, not necessarily self-confident, but self-contained. It's interesting now in my early 40s to look back through to the through line of my first job was washing dishes, and I had to do it at the local roadhouse from a small town next to the guy who'd stolen my bike a year before. Just stuff like that, where you're like, oh, you got to lock it up a little bit. That too got in a lot of trouble. I mean, he stole the bike, but I got him in a lot of trouble. And now we got to work together. It feels like there's this, life is so funny, all the lessons it teaches you along the way, but it does feel, looking back, that there's this deterministic through path. I have an insanely specific set of skills that I think let me be very successful at what I do today. But for the like on the daily, I got a no from a doc, I got a no from an investor. My wife's sick of hearing me talk about the company, like whatever the thing is. The reality is that those moments are really, really hard. I don't want to pretend that I'm like, all good. Like, I'm really hard on myself. And my inner voice is nobody cares, work harder. You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad. I have like probably felt more stressed out over the last 6 years from like anxiety and cynicism, and it's not going to work. And oh my God, for me, like it has to work. Right. So like, I think if it was just a job that I thought was like, hey, I could build a better lemonade stand, I would have quit a long time ago. But because it's my kid. So as a parent, you're having a bad day, maybe didn't sleep well the night before, maybe a rough week, right? And your kid's like, hey, come watch me play soccer. Yeah, bud. Like, let's go do this. Cause like you're what matters. Even in the worst moments, I don't know. I just felt like I never had an option but to go try again. There have been so many times building this thing where I'm like, oh, it's over. Like, we're going to run out of money, or my investors are going to pull out, or like this thing isn't going to work just for whatever reason. Every founder has these stories, and you got to let yourself have the bad day and the bad afternoon, and maybe go to bed feeling a little bit bad. And you got to wake up and tie your shoes and go back at it. And like, I just don't know if there's anything other to it than just like, you got to build that grit inside yourself to go back out and try again, get back up on that horse.
It's time to ask yourself, when was the last time you prioritized you? Did you know that research shows that nearly 85% of high performers struggle to maintain a performance mindset while juggling the demands of work and personal life? Those who actively prioritize their performance mindset and personal growth are 30% more likely to achieve their goals in business and life. If you're feeling crippling stress and anxiety, or if you're feeling guilty when you take a moment for yourself, or if you're stuck in the grind and feeling burnt out, you're not alone. Many of us yearn for more, but struggle with the fear of being judged or feeling selfish. And you want to step into the next best version of yourself. That's why I created the Rinse Method, which got me from paraplegic to marathon runner. Backed by science-based proven strategies and now customized for high performers like you. If you're stuck and stressed and want clear steps that you can implement today to move forward, make sure you visit thepositivepersistence.com to download our free Rinse PDF. I love what you just said about allowing yourself to have that bad day, right? Because there's so much alpha male toxic bravado out there that's just grind, no matter what. Hide your feelings, doesn't matter. You just keep pushing. But that honest admission of you have to give yourself permission to fall apart sometimes. The important part, like you said, is that you don't stay there, right? Like you wake up the next day and you get back to work. What are some boundaries or habits maybe that you have or have used that help you make sure that you get back up, that you don't stay in that area of falling apart or feeling bad?
It kind of depends on the environment, right? Like I'm definitely like a talk it out personality. I talk through my problems. Maybe I like blabber through my problems, honestly, sometimes, right? But like I problem solve out loud. That's the polite way to say that. I problem solve out loud. So like sometimes I just get on the phone. Like my youngest brother is probably my best friend. I find that talking through stuff, even if it isn't like, hey, here's what's going on with a specific problem, but I can just kind of like talk out loud about things. It lets that kind of process flow. I do need to do that in the immediate. I like to work out, right? And I find like on the days that I don't get myself to the gym or my system, my like schedule isn't met, those are the days I get a little itchy. But if I have a bad afternoon, like I'm definitely going to the gym the next morning. You know, you got to like work that part out. And then there's a lot of other stuff, man. Like you can make a lot of jokes about like touching grass, but we live not so far from the ocean. I'll take my dog out and go like run down by the water. We have a great woods path down at the bottom of our road. I'll go take her out over there. When we lived in the city, I would walk for hours on the sidewalk and just like let my mind wander and like think through how the problems can get. As much as I'm a super structured person, the unstructured time that like where you can fall into that, I don't want to call it meditative, but it's like you give your mind the opportunity to kind of roam a little bit. Usually that's where I can like pull myself down a couple of notches and be like, okay, you know, that was one investor who said no, timing's everything, like whatever the rationale needs to be. cool, I can put that away now. And now like
Right.
on to the next one, right? Like that was a challenge. That was a letdown. That was a problem. Can't let it eat you up. Put it away. Let's go home and make dinner and hang out with the kids. I don't know. If you got a better way, let me know. Because sometimes it can still take me hours to get over it.
I think it kind of depends on the environment, and everybody has their different ways. But again, part of this podcast is sharing those, so other people have options to try things that may work for them, and they may not, but you never know until you give it a shot.
When I was younger, it's like self-medicate, right? Like you go to the bar with your boys and like blow off the steam. But like I find that doesn't really work for me anymore. Like for me, it's much more about facing the issue, understanding why it happened, seeing what I can learn from it. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but it's true. Like, all right, like this pitch didn't go well. What could I have done better? Sometimes I'm rewatching pitches like from my own recordings where I'm like, ooh, I could have said that better. That gives me a sense of control over what's going to happen the next time. Like being able to get that practice in, because man, I mess stuff up all the time. And I think that's a thing that like a lot of people don't appreciate. I have an investor told me this great thing, we're raising some money, we're getting good press and all that stuff. It's like, hey, it only takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Like no one sees all of the work that it takes to build the practices and build the release mechanisms for yourself. And it's really just like one foot in front of the other. You can't expect to be all the way at the end the first day that you start. And you got to give yourself the grace to like take the time to acquire those skills and build those skills. Because it's not going to happen day one. It's not going to happen the first year.
Right.
I've been at this thing almost 7 years now. And we're just now catching fire.
Patience is a virtue.
Yeah. Patience, good friends.
Yeah. A mentor of mine talks about doing the work in the dark so you can shine in the light. Like you said, it's about doing all the stuff behind the scenes that nobody sees so that you can one day shine in the light. Now, Josh, you've been able to turn your personal pain into a systemic solution. And a lot of people go through something hard with their own health or with their kids' health, and they think that, someone needs to fix this, but they stop there. You didn't do that. What was the difference in your case that pushed you from that pain and frustration into building a system level solution like Sunstone that attacks architecture, not just the family's case, like the architecture of the whole system?
Yeah, there's two things that I can think of. One is that I had done it before, not from a healthcare sense. In my life, I've probably tried to start 20 businesses, and I'm just picking it, but it's a bunch. Mm-hmm. I have a great idea. Let's go try this thing. That one didn't work, and everything from like fermented foods business, meal delivery business. And then one of them worked. We made this lid for mason jars. Sounds so innocuous, but it took off. It was this viral hit. We were on Oprah's blog. We're on Target blog. We're in the New York Times. We sold hundreds of thousands of these things, all while I'm working full-time at Harvard, creating something that then went on to actually do something, revolutionize the mason jar industry for better or worse. I had touched that success before. I knew it was possible, right? I knew that I could build a company that was capable of performing. And I did it again and I did it again. I'm one of those people who I very much believe that like anyone can do anything. You just gotta, again, it's like one step at a time, right? So that's on the one side of like, I'm like, okay, I have the skills, right? When I'm kind of like reviewing my own toolbox, I know how to build businesses and I know how to scale stuff and I know how to get in front of people. I don't really like talking about myself, but I've had to learn how to do that part too, because my story is a big part of the story. As I started making friends in the rare disease world, I'm seeing these people, ordinary people, who are changing the world because their kid passed away, because their kid is dying in front of them, because their kid is never going to get better. Moms and dads, right? Like a musician, a marketer, people who don't even have the training that I have, let alone the education or like the success I've had personally, who are like, F that, I'm going to go run as hard as I can against that wall because it's not right. We got a crew now, like our band is strong. That inspiration, for better or worse, supported by my like firm belief in my skills that I can go do that. And then just like, I have to do it because of it's my kid. It's not just like a good business opportunity. Just pushed me into the space and then like never let me get out of the space. Like ask my wife on the good days versus the bad days, like I'm stubborn as hell, And so like, I'm not quitting until we change this thing.
We briefly touched on Sunstone, which you are the founder of. If you had to give a elevator pitch to describe what it is, what your company does, what would you say?
The easiest way to describe it is we use technology to find kids with a genetic basis for disease before they get diagnosed. So super early in their care journey, we surface them, we get them diagnosed, we get them seen by a specialty, and we deliver those results back to wherever they are, back to their local care team. All right. And that 7-year journey that I talked about before, we can do the same thing in 12 weeks. Once mom and dad say yes to me, we can deliver the same thing in 12 weeks. So you don't have to wait 6 odd years to go get the answers that you deserve so you can get the healthcare that you deserve.
I can hear the tone and the pitch in your voice, which I'm sure you've had to say this a million times. You can hear the passion come through when you talk about it. You use the word legacy. And in our conversation that we had before, you said that even if Sunstone would shut down tomorrow, you'd still feel proud because of the hundreds of families you've already helped.
The truth is, like, when you were asking before about like what keeps me confident about moving forward, like, and then we helped that first family, you're like, holy crap, we did it. You know what I mean? And then you help family 5, and then you help family 50, and now we've helped hundreds of families, and you're like, it's working. Now you have to go move it forward. I know that we've made an impact. You know the analogy about like ripples in the pond, like you throw pebbles and they're like, I don't know what those ripples will do in like the big global picture of things, but I know for hundreds of families we have made their life better. If nothing else, like the mission that I am on to help families and their diagnostic odyssey, I've checked the first box. I haven't checked the box where I've helped 1 million families do that. She's got to have big goals. We've spent an insanely small amount of money to do it, compared to like some of the $1 billion that you see governments spend to do the same thing. We've been incredibly effective at leveraging our network, motivating people. We've helped families in Medellin, Colombia. We've helped families in Mexico City. We've helped families here in the States. We have brought whole genome sequencing to families who have never been able to access it for one reason or another. We were out in Anaheim in November at the Epilepsy Awareness Day, giving out whole genome sequences for free to families who are in the healthcare system here in America, but their doctor won't order it for them, or they don't think it's useful, or whatever the reason is. But these are families who need information, who need this as the next step, even if it's just to tie the knot on like this one loose end of like, is there something else we could do that healthcare science should be giving them? If we can create a better system, even if it's degrees better, let alone significantly better, what an amazing impact to leave behind. And not just for me, but for the company and like everyone who works for me, all the people that I convinced to come work for me for basically no money because they believe in the mission, you know, and like I'm finally paying them now. But I've had people with me for years who were willing to take very reduced paychecks because they wanted to go off and help families too. I don't want to sit here like, yes, I'm one of the co-founders, but it takes a village. There is a huge, huge network of people who want to see this change and are willing to go work on the problem with me. And we are changing it. That's pretty incredible. Any way you want to cut it.
How does your, we'll call it legacy over outcome mindset, change the way that you handle fear, pressure, uncertainty? And you kind of mentioned this before, like, does it help to remember the fact that you've been able to be successful in doing this? So whatever roadblock comes up or whatever stands before you, you know that you'll be able to get through it as well.
No, it doesn't. Like the reality for me, for better or worse, like I'm never content. And that can be a really powerful weapon when it's used rightly. It can be a really debilitating personality trait if I'm just trying to enjoy the moment. It's just how I'm wired. So it's just the truth. All the good work we've done, like I can sit here on the one side and be super proud of that, and I am. And I can literally look right around the corner and be like, it's not enough. You could do so much more. You can go raise a lot more money. You can go help 1 million families. And that's the voice in my head that really makes me move forward, of just like, you could just do so much more. You could be so much. Hey, if you've helped 100 families, you should help 1,000, right? Like, why would you stop now? The legacy thing isn't really a thing that exists in real time for me. I'm like conscious of it because I know the impact that different doctors who've done good for us or who have made my kid more comfortable, like I know their name. Do you know what I mean? And that's a thing. That's a piece of psychic energy that will, like, I'll carry their name forward. But at the same time, that doesn't make it feel better when an investor says no to me. Doesn't make it feel better when, like, a vendor doesn't deliver on time and I got a family waiting over there. Like, that's still a problem you got to solve right now. Or that's a frustration. I still got to go take my dog to the beach and, like, throw the tennis ball for half an hour and, like, get that out of me. Globally, it's probably easier because I've built the tools over time. But the moment to moment, I don't know. Does it ever get easier? I don't think so. Maybe not.
It doesn't get any easier. You just get better at handling it, I think, more over time.
Hopefully.
Right. As we grow.
Yeah.
There are so many things that you said today that, again, can be pulled out and applied to different situations about resilience, about overcoming setbacks, about trusting in your own abilities and pushing forward. And also, again, as we talked about, giving yourself grace sometimes to sit in whether it is a failure, but then using that scientific method of understanding that failing over and over again is actually the road to success. And I love that you put it that way. I'm hoping that you will give our listeners and viewers a way to find out more about Sunstone Health, more about Josh Resnikoff.
Sometimes I have to do podcasts and it's a bit more of like a pitch for the company, or, you know, like, let's get into the side. It's really nice to be able to talk about, like, a little bit on the deeper level, the more emotional level about the bigger picture, you know? So thank you for that. If there's any wisdom in there and it's useful for somebody, I'm glad for it. People can find out more about what we do at Sunstone Health at sunstonehealth.com. Follow me on LinkedIn, Joshua Resnikoff. You can find out more as a patient, or if you want us to be brought into your employer, because we sell to self-funded employers, go to sunstonehealth.com. Send me your benefits manager, whoever that looks like, your benefits administrator if you're in the union, whoever that looks like. We can make it really easy for them to onboard our product and service to help you as a family. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I post updates all the time, showcase families that we've helped, all that sort of stuff. But we'd be happy to have anybody. If anybody has a question, shoot us an email at info@sunstonehealth.com and we'll get right back to you.
All right, Josh, thanks again for taking some time out of your busy day to join us here. And I want to thank all of our listeners and viewers. As we always do, we end it off with stay positive, stay persistent, and know that mindset is everything. Thank you for tuning in and being part of the Positive Persistence family. We're having a great time creating this content, and we truly hope it inspires you to embrace positivity and persistence in your own journey. If this podcast episode inspired you or entertained you, scroll down, hit those stars, and leave a comment or two. Your 5-star reviews and shares encourage us and help us grow the show. So until next time, stay positive, stay persistent, and remember, mindset is everything.